Hi. Some of you are asking how I make my kombucha, so I'm going to make a quick video and kind of show you how I do it so you can do it at home. Okay, so the things you're going to need is a gallon glass jar, a cup of sugar, 6 tea bags of black tea. You can do 3 green, 3 black tea, or oolong tea, which is the in-between. Green is just green and black is ripe, and so oolong is about half ripe. So I do 6 oolong, and your kombucha starter with your SCOBY. And fun fact, SCOBY actually stands for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. So that is what's going to ferment your kombucha. So you want to get a pot of distilled water and bring it to a boil because you want to steep your tea for about 10 minutes. So that's about ready. We're going to get the tea bags in there and just for 10 minutes steep it off the heat. Okay, so I have this brewing right now. I started my timer for 10 minutes, so we're gonna wait and let that simmer for 10 minutes. And I'm gonna show you how I do my second fermentation. So when we get this all done, we'll have this. And this is gonna take a week to brew. And then we're going to wanna put this in our glass bottles over here. So our kombucha bottles. And we're going to add juice and ginger and a tiny bit of sugar. So I'm going to get this ready and show you how I do the second fermentation. So this is the first fermentation. This will be the second fermentation. So this all finished after about a week. This is 2 weeks, so this is really ready for me to do. Okay, we'll get started. Okay, so this is what your brewed kombucha will look like after about a week. Your SCOBY will actually produce another SCOBY up top. So when we're working with fermentation, you want to have all sterile, everything sterilized. So I use thieves cleaner to make sure that everything is clean and sterile so that we're not introducing bad bacteria into our good bacteria environment. So we'll have to take the SCOBY out. So this is our new SCOBY, and we're going to put this in our SCOBY hotel. So you'll have a separate jar you'll put your SCOBYs in. And this fluid in here is just starter. So all of this is considered starter. This is just pure kombucha with no flavoring. This is basically fermented sweet tea. So now we have to add more starter to our hotel because that's too dry. So we'll add some of this to our SCOBY hotel. And then we will pour this into these jars about here, and then I will show you adding the juice and the ginger. Okay, so we have our tea. It is brewed for 10 minutes. We need to add our sugar while it's hot, so that will dissolve. So a cup of sugar into our concentrated tea. And we want that to dissolve completely. And once that is stirred in and dissolved, you can let that cool because we cannot add our starter and kombucha to hot tea or it will kill our SCOBY. So that's going to have to cool down till at least 85 degrees. When it's reached at least 85 degrees, then it's cool enough to add to our jar with distilled water and our SCOBY and our starter. So we're going to let that rest and then we're going to add juice to our bottles. So this is our first fermentation, and then now we're working on our second fermentation. This is 1 week kombucha put into glass bottles, and then we're going to add our juice. Now you can use whatever juice you prefer, but I prefer grape. Grape is my favorite flavor. I've tried different flavors. I will use some cherry grape blends. You can find that at Aldi. I think it's called the antioxidant blend. I always use organic juice though, because with fermentation you don't want pesticides or anything in there that could inhibit the growth or the fermentation process. So we're going to add our juice to our jars, and then we are going to add the juice almost to the very top, because we want there to be as little air in our bottles as possible, because that will help, it'll help build pressure so that there's carbonation. So I'm going to add the juice, and then we'll move on to the ginger. Okay, so we have our bottles filled almost to the very top. So we're leaving very little room for air, but just enough so that it can build carbonation. This next step is not necessary, but I find it best if you like fizzy kombucha. I don't like flat kombucha, so I found that doing this helps make it fizzier. So I take ginger, organic ginger, and I just dice it up and put it in a freezer bag and put it in my freezer. So when I need it, I'll put a tiny little chunk right in the bottle, just like that. And that's going to help give that, that kombucha some, basically like a food to help it process and make it fizzier. I really don't understand the science behind it, but I do know that it does help. So a tiny bit of ginger in each bottle, and then you're going to take just not even a pinch of sugar. I just do like tiny little granules. I don't know if you can see that, and I just sprinkle it right in, just a tiny bit, so that when 3 days have gone by, it will form like its own individual little SCOBY on top. And you just remove that and throw it away. You don't drink that. I mean, you can if you want, but that's not for me. But I'll show you the final process and then explain the rest from there. Okay, so all of our bottles are done. They have the ginger and the sugar right at the very top. I don't shake it or anything. I just close the lid, not very tight, just tight enough so that it's firm. And then we're gonna let that sit for 3 days in a cool, dark place. You can, if it's your counter has no sunlight, you can set it right on your counter. You can put it in a cabinet. And wait 3 days, and after 3 days it's ready. I usually go 5 just to make sure it's had plenty of time to carbonate. And then I put them all in the fridge, because the fridge will slow down that fermentation process, and then you can just drink them from there. I only have maybe 2 ounces a day, because this isn't like, I don't drink a whole bottle. Me and my family will drink probably 2 ounces in the evenings for extra probiotics. And why do I drink kombucha? Well, I don't have an appendix. I had my appendix removed when I was younger, and that is where all your good bacteria are stored. So if you don't have that storage of good bacteria in your gut, you're going to need to supplement. I'm not a yogurt person, and I'm not crazy about kefir. This is about the best stuff that I like, and it doesn't take much. And I've noticed a huge difference in my skin, in my digestive tract. It's really helped my family. So when this is cooled, At temperature, I'll show you the rest of that process. This is basically the same thing, just adding that to your jar, filling it with water, and then adding your starter and letting that sit in a cool, dark area for 1 week. Okay, so I've added distilled water to my sweet tea concentrate. We are at about 85 degrees. It can be cooler. You just don't want to be higher than 85 because you don't want to cook your SCOBY. So we're at a good temperature. So now we want to add our SCOBY and starter. 1 cup starter and 1 SCOBY. Stir. And then cover with a cloth so that bugs don't get in there. And set it for 1 week on a counter or in your cabinet. And there you go. You have your kombucha. This is fermentation 1 and then fermentation 2. 1 week for the first fermentation and then 3 days for your second fermentation. And you'll know when it's gone too long because it'll start leaking out of the bottle. So you put that in the fridge once 3 to 5 days has passed and you can start drinking it. All right, thanks guys.